Aloha, everyone. I am Shaun Lether of Hawaiian IANDS, and I want to welcome you to our special event honoring and celebrating Black History Month and highlighting members of the community who will be sharing some of their experiences. We are here to honor those that have gone before and pave the path for the generations that have followed, to celebrate the brave souls sharing their spiritually transformative experiences with the world, and to highlight some in our community who will be sharing some of their experiences with us today. For several years, I've been wanting to create a space to honor the African-Americans in our community. So this event is near and dear to my heart, and I'm very honored that all of you have come together. It's taken a while, but we have the perfect group together, and I am forever grateful. I'm thrilled today to welcome a group of panelists of African descent who have had such experiences and agreed to speak about them publicly, some for the first time. Some of us are quite nervous. Like many experiencers, people of African descent have often resisted talking about certain types of extraordinary spiritual events over fears of rejection in their traditional churches, temples, families, and communities. For many, those interpersonal connections are too important to risk or lose. Nevertheless, more and more Afro-Americans and Afro-Caribbeans are speaking out and acknowledging unusual spiritual moments that changed their lives forever. What better opportunity than Black History Month to explore this often unspoken legacy? Please be gentle with them as they tell their stories and encourage others to come forward and realize that they are not alone. Also, feel free to ask questions throughout the talk, which will come to me. And towards the end, we will do a question and answer period. We're going to begin with each of our panelists introducing themselves and speaking for 5 minutes each. If you haven't seen the newsletter and if you haven't seen the Facebook event page, we will put a link where you can read more about each speaker, including their links of where you can reach them. Because we have a large panel and lots to say, we're asking that each speaker honor those parameters and speak for 5 minutes. And then we're going to go through everyone. And then if you can put, when you put in the chat, if you can put a Q in front of your question so that I can tell the difference between if it's just a statement or a question. And after we go through the initial 5 minutes each of the intro, we're going to be looking at different spiritually transformative experiences that people have had. And thanks to Yvonne Kaysen, Loretta will be putting the chat to Spiritual Awakenings International to a description of spiritually transformative experiences so you can all know, if you don't already know, all of the different things that you can experience other than NDEs to have a spiritually transformative experience. So with that, we're going to get started with our first speaker, Venus-Val, who I am so honored. She's been coming to our sharing group for quite a while. We've been friends for a couple of years now, and she's finally going to share some of her experiences with us. So take it away.
Good day. My name is Venus-Val. And I'm a woman from New York City. And I am so grateful for the IANDS groups. They're the first groups that I've come across where I can share spiritually transforming experience that I had. I grew up in New York City, which was a wonderful place because the world came there. It was a great deal of immigration. And I definitely do realize that I had children, classmates from all over the world in my class. Now, my home life was kind of rough. My father was physically and verbally abusive, and he made me think that I was worthless. Now, one event that first made me realize that something different was going on was that I could see auras around people. I could see this electrical charge around their bodies, whether it was light or dark or different shades. And when I was looking for information on that, the first person I came across was Nicholas Tesla. And he was talking about the electrical systems that our body has. At this time, it was a Christmas holiday, and in my two-family home, had a renter in the apartment below. My father had set up a Christmas tree, and we were not allowed to touch it. And it had electric lights on it, but no one was allowed to plug it in until he did. Now, I had put a Christmas decoration on the tree, and he saw that, did not like that, and verbally chewed me out. Well, he then went out, left the house, to go to the store for some item, and I was left alone staring at this tree, really hurt, really angry. And now the tree is 6 feet away from me, and I focused with such anger. I was trying my best not to tear the tree down, when I saw a little spark, which grew into a flame. And then I realized that tree was on fire. There was nothing around it to set it off, except the image in my mind that I was going to burn down this tree. I was in shock. I did nothing to stop the fire, but luckily at that moment, when my father returned, and he had a fire extinguisher in our house and put it out. And of course, assume I did that after his chewing me out. I was so stunned that my mind could do that I did my best not to focus angry ideas. I did my best growing up not to drink or to smoke, because I thought it would bring me out of control and I might do something harsh like that again. The first person that I could even find to talk to about a subject like that was not the Catholic school that I had gone to for 12 years. I happened to be near a Wiccan community, and I could talk to them about what had happened and my auras, and they told me that this was a spiritual experience, but not to be fearful, because I actually have the control. Now, after that, I did have what's being called a near-death experience. I had had a bad fall off a motor scooter, and I was taken to a hospital because I was hemorrhaging. And I was in my body until after a while in the emergency room. Oxygen's being applied, IVs are being started, monitors are being attached, and I hear the staff shuffling around me. And then the next moment, I'm out of my body, looking down on the bed as the staff continued to work. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my body, when this mist, like a warm tide of water, crept up my legs, up my thighs, up my chest, and surrounded my whole face. And for a moment, I felt like I was looking through a mist. But in that mist was when I felt love. Love that made me feel that I was worth something. Love that made me think that I should let the medical staff do the procedures that was necessary. And I didn't realize it until I heard a sound of a device saying that I had stopped breathing.
Venus, let's pause and leave with a cliffhanger, if we
Okay.
can, so that
All
Helen can introduce herself, and then
Oh,
the cliffhanger, you can tell that next part when we go to the next section. So let's go to Helen next to introduce yourself, and if you can, everybody just try to stick to 5 minutes. And there you go. There you are. And you can take off your own timer unless you want to time yourself. But you've got
somebody speak up, okay? And then I'll turn the timer off.
Yeah, turn off the timer.
I'll turn it off. All right, there we go.
There, now it doesn't distract from you.
All right. Thanks, Shaun.
I'm sorry, I didn't have my timer on.
Oh, that's fine. So, hello. Hi, everybody. This is such an unbelievable experience, I think, for all of us. We've had experiences, we've never talked about it. And Shaun has been successful in pulling us all out of our metaphysical closets so that we're taking the risk of talking about experiences that have gone, for me, for example, since I was a child, since the age of 4. There have been a whole series of experiences, and my gateway, my portal, not for everybody, for some it's physical trauma or emotional trauma. Mine was always medical. I ended up having something like 9 or 10 operations, and something weird would happen every time I would have surgery. I'd either come out speaking a language I couldn't have known, or I would think that I was waking up in the middle of the surgery, listening to the doctor's conversation about what they should do with my body, and then realizing that I was watching my own body while they were working on it, feeling no pain, but totally conscious. And of course, I was upset with them. It's like, why did you put me out? And they probably had put me out, but I was not aware what out meant. That's just one of many experiences for me, often starting with medical trauma. One other one I will mention briefly is being in the hospital for a knee surgery. It was not a stroke or a heart attack. It was just a medial meniscus replacement because I was exercising too hard. And just before the surgery, I talked with a woman in the room next to me. We were both in the hospital a couple of days. This was the old days. You're in and out in the same day. But no, we were there for several days. And the woman in the next room died. I didn't know her. We were strangers. But from my room, I had had my surgery. I couldn't move and walk around and visit. She showed up outside of the window of my room and said to me, as clearly as I'm looking at your faces today, take care of my family. And then I discovered from the medical staff that she had passed. And in fact, I did, once I was able to move and they came back to the hospital to see me, talk with the husband, talk with the children, and help them through this process. I mean, where do you put this stuff? How do we name it, claim it, and not be shunned or excommunicated from communities that we love and care about? So basically, you just stuff it. I have had experiences talking with people who have passed. I have had clues from nature. For example, a cat who got run over in traffic. I would smell cat litter from Kit Kat. I would smell cat litter if I were driving on the road and about to encounter some kind of obstacle like a deer in the road ahead. I get the overwhelming smell of cat litter, and I would know to slow down. And within less than 5 minutes, I would be encountering something on the road. So there's that connection with each other, family, the connection with nature, precognitive information, having a powerful, I guess you would call it lucid dream, where I met my future boss in a dream, wrote it down, had no meaning to me at the time, and then ended up with no plan to move, working in that setting on the exact date, September 19th, 1981, where I ended up working at a university in California. There is so much more to this than meets the eye. So I'm inviting you. We don't have time to talk about the whole range of experiences like that. One thing I will say is that some of the most important collections of these data are actually in preeminent universities. Harvard has a huge collection of channeled material. William James, who was a famous professor there, was a metaphysician as well. Yale holds the Jane Roberts Seth material. Duke has all kinds of materials. Stanford and Swarthmore. Some of the preeminent universities have paid enough attention to this subject matter to host private collections in these universities. So we're not all just woo-woo. We're not crazy. We are still your family and loved ones. We love you, but we would also like to be able to talk about these things without the fear of rejection. I will stop there and just say, whatever, I'm an academic, but I've had too many things that my training doesn't explain. And so I invite you to think about your experiences that you have not been able to put into a box yet, but maybe after today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so next, sorry, I loved everything you were saying. So next we have our friend, Dr. Norma Edwards, who was our speaker just a couple weeks ago. He gave an amazing talk, which we'll put the link to in the chat. And take it away, Norma.
Well, hello, welcome. I am Norma. I had no idea the phenomenal meaning of those three words until after I woke up from a medical emergency. It took me into surgery in London. And brought me through that experience. And when I opened my eyes, I found myself, first of all, traveling through a very dark tunnel. And please, in this world, darkness is expected to be frightening. There was nothing frightening about it. I was quite at peace. Traveled through a tunnel and into the light. Phenomenal, beautiful, glorious light. And at that moment, understood that love turns into light. I had a number of experiences, which perhaps I might highlight later on. But the one that stood out for me was the fact that I went to the Akashic Record, the place where everything is stored energetically in a library that consists of everything from the beginning of time throughout history, and carries the information on each and every one of us, who we are, where we began, where we entered, where we left. Looking at the record helped me to understand that there is no death. We have arrival and departure, you see. I'm either arriving on Mother Earth, which is a school, or I'm arriving at home, which is the heavenly realms. After that near-death experience, I found myself, I woke up with what I call today a phenomenal transformation of my consciousness. As soon as I woke up, I realized that I could see the human aura, I could look into the human body, I could relate to sound, not only from the rhythmic patterns, but the colors of the notes and how they were aligned to mathematical symbols. And my journey began. I reviewed 7 lifetimes at a time. And one of the things in my work afterwards, I realized that each one of those lifetimes held a tremendous amount of fear. I died very fearfully. I died very horribly. And as a result of that, at the record, I realized that all of that fearful energy was still stored within my supraconsciousness. And in this lifetime, I was told that I will come not to bow to dogma, but to overcome fear. And so tonight, I want to encourage each and every one of you who are listening, who are participating, to hear the message I was sent back with. There is no death. Life is eternal. And love turns into light. And light is the steward of creation. So if we want to create something new, we want to recreate ourselves, it takes levels and frequencies of light. Throughout the 56 years, when I first had my near-death experience in 1966, I had nothing. I had no label by which to label it. And for 15 years, I kept quiet. That's the reason why I'm on here tonight. For 15 years, I stayed silent. My marriage broke up because my husband thought I really was going crazy. And the very first time I spoke about my experience was the night before my mother passed. And that allowed her to pass without fear. And then I shut up again for the next, believe it or not, 15 years. So I understand that in our community, that fear of being excommunicated from family, excommunicated from the church, is a very real one. And as Black people, we have traveled that road of being not a part of, if you see what I mean, struggling to kind of find our way in a society that has rejected us. We've overcome quite a lot of our struggles. But I really want to ask those who are listening tonight to stop and think about the fact, there is this, Desmond Tutu left us with a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful quote. And the quote says, "My humanity is bound up in yours. Whether you be Black, whether you be white, whether you be Native American, whether you be mixed, our humanity is bound one into the other." For you see, we can only be human together. The struggle of finding our humanness, finding our oneness, we have to do it together. And so tonight, my plea is that I've even got family members that after 56 years, I am now discovering they had near-death experiences they never spoke about. But you see, the earth is moving towards transition. We have transitioned from 3 to 5. And that requires that we speed our vibration up. And if we don't speak about these things, we're holding information that will allow others to grow, to garner knowledge, and to be able to travel. So my plea to everyone listening here tonight is put aside the fear and allow yourself to open up and to speak, open up and listen, because near-death experiencers hold the key to peace on earth, goodwill to man. Thank you so much. And Shaun, I want to say to you, love you so much that you choose to give us this opportunity to be able to share. Thank you.
My honor, my honor. I'm so grateful for you and for everybody here. And I just wish we could do it all night because, everybody who doesn't know this group of people as well as I do, I really could listen to them all night. And in the case of a few of them, I do listen to them several hours on phone calls, and I never get tired of it. So I'm just truly honored. Okay, so next, Miss Caroline Chang is here, and she has also been a speaker at Hawaiian IANDS in, I think, October.
Yes, it was October. Yes. Thank you, Shaun. Thank you so much for this. And I'm always honored to speak and share. All of our experiences are very unique. Mine's is unique. It was not a near-death experience. I felt a connection to something bigger from the time I was very, very young. My parents sent me to Catholic school, and I had religion every day in Catholic school. But what I was being taught in Catholic, the dogma of religion just did not resonate with me. So that's why I say, even as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, I felt something, a strong connection. And when an adult was telling me something that I did not think was correct, I couldn't speak on it, but in my heart and soul, it didn't feel right. My father was pretty strict. I mean, loving father, but professional and strict, and said children are to be seen and not heard. So I could not, if I heard something that didn't resonate with me, I couldn't mention it. I had to keep it inside. So I knew as I got older, I would do my own searching for truth, because I didn't feel like I was getting the truth. And as I got older, I did start reading metaphysical books, spirituality, all of that resonated with me. But I could say there was a missing piece, because it was something inside of me said something is missing that will bring it all together. And for me, it was science. So I know people say woo-woo, but my foundation is all connected to science. Everything I'm grounded in has been proven scientifically. So in 2007, I watched a film called What the Bleep. It was all about quantum physics. I had never even really heard of quantum physics, but the core principle of quantum physics is oneness, is universal oneness, that where everything is connected and interdependent. There is just one. It's all energy. I heard many of you mention energy earlier. Everything is energy, and it's the same energy, all connected. And the difference is it vibrates at different frequencies. So it's the same energy vibrating at different frequencies. And when I understood that, there was one sentence that was the catalyst to an internal awakening that I cannot even put into words, because it was something that woke up inside of me. It wasn't a mind, it was a heart and soul awakening. And that one sentence was, the biggest problem in the world today is the illusion of separation. And when I heard that, something literally woke up inside of me, knew that was true, knew that all of mankind's problems would be solved overnight if we all woke up tomorrow morning and knew that we are all one, knew that we're all one with God, source, universe, whatever name you have for God, Allah, Jehovah, doesn't matter what name. We are all one with God. And when I say one, we are holographic cells of God, meaning we are all of God in a drop. Each one of us is all of God. We're creating this reality, and we have many, many, many lifetimes. And we've been men, we've been women, we've been Black, we've been white, we've been yellow, we've been green, probably on other planets, okay? We have been God wants to experience everything through us. And I got all of that with that one understanding of quantum physics. It was science that bridged my spirituality, because that answered everything. And I call that one energy, my name for that energy is love. And I'll say unconditional love, because man likes to put conditions on love. Like, I love you tomorrow, but yeah, I love you today, but I don't love you tomorrow. We have conditions for love, but God's love and the love of the universe is unconditional. So I don't even say bad, good anymore. I say high vibration or low vibration. And high vibration is knowing, is the unity consciousness. We 3D matrix is of the separation consciousness, which causes war and violence and crime, all of those things, poverty, all of those things come from separation consciousness. When we awaken and remember that we are all God, all creating our universe, all connected. We're creating our life, not someone else's life. So it's not, when I say I'm God of my reality, no one else's. So, and you are God of your reality, no one else's. But it made everything clear for me. And then I had experiences. So after my awakening, my son got ill. A few years, about 3 years after my awakening, he got very ill. And he almost didn't make it in 2011. And doctors told me he wasn't going
Caroline, let's leave that for the next section for the
okay. Sure.
because you have a lot to share about that, and I love that story. Let's go ahead and welcome. What did you have something to say?
Yeah,
real quick?
I just wanted to say, with that experience, that motivated me to live my life purpose. That's basically all. I wasn't going to go into detail of that,
Right.
but I wanted to say that experience of my son transitioning inspired me to live my purpose, which is to share the truth of oneness. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Okay, Don, you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. I want to welcome my friend Don Hose and take it away.
Well, so first of all, it's a pleasure for me to be here and spend this time with everyone. I had my first experience of any kind was, I think I was about, I'm going to say 11 or maybe 10 going on 11. And I was on an icy pond. The pond was very small, but I only weighed about 90 pounds at the time. So it doesn't take much. And you're a kid, so you go out and you start jumping on the ice. And you could hear it cracking, but you still didn't have enough sense to get off of the pond. And this pond was small. It was in my backyard. But the bottom line is I got submerged under that water. And it was very cold. And immediately I went into some state, maybe some meditative state where everything was the opposite of what I thought it should be. In other words, my mind said, wow, you should be really, really cold. I was feeling very, very warm. I was thinking, you know, things should be very dark and murky. And that was not my experience. I was experiencing a very bright and warm light, mostly pinkish in color. And, you know, I thought, I'm supposed to think I'm going to die. How am I going to get in touch with my mother? And what am I going to do? But something said, you're just fine. You'll be fine. And the only reason that I assumed that I went unconscious is because I don't know how I got out of the water. I don't have any recollection of getting out of the water. And right now, that doesn't really make any difference to me. The everything of being the opposite of what it should have been saved me. When I did come to, I remember all of a sudden I was cold. And so the only thing I wanted to do at that time was to go inside and take off these cold, wet clothes, put something warm on and go to bed. And my mother wasn't there yet, so I said, okay, I'll just lay here and rest. I remember shaking and trembling. And even after that, even when had changed clothes and was laying down, and I could still experience this a different kind of warmth. It wasn't like a warmth of physical temperature, but it was a warmth that let you know that you were in good hands and everything would be all right. I'd never seen a pinkish white light, radiant light like that before. So, a long story short, I forgot all about that as I got older, and I was raised in an Episcopal church, and still am a Christian today. I wouldn't be considered active to some people, but there was a card on our book table. I'm 12 years old now, so this is about a year and a half later, and it had a big picture of Christ on it, and the eyes were the most attractive eyes that you'd ever want to look at. So I kept it. I never took the card back, but on the back of that card it said, if you meditate on me for 5 minutes a day, your entire life will change. That just puzzled me. So you know what I did? I went to the library to look up meditation, to find books on meditation. So this was like 1970. There weren't any. There were maybe two. I took one out, and the title of that book was called Om, O-M. I can't find it, but I never took that back. I kept it. And in the back of that book, in the front of it, all the pages were of a man doing different positions of hatha yoga. Put his feet behind his head and twist himself up like a pretzel and do all these different physical things. And I'm thinking, this isn't what I'm looking for. But in the very back, he was meditating. And he had a position of laying down, a position of sitting up with his legs crossed. Well, I could barely do a half lotus position, because I can't even do that now. But he said, if you're American and you do the sleeping position, what's going to happen is you're going to go to sleep. And so I quickly understood that sleepitation was not meditation, and that even dreams are a semi-conscious state. That's why it's called REM, R-E-M, rapid eye movement. We're not fully conscious even in the dream state. Can people have a spiritual experience? Can something come to them? Yes, it's very rare though. Mostly dreams happen in an unconscious state, and dreams are unloading of our daily, weekly, monthly issues and thinking. And some of this stuff has to get released. So we can't go out and throw rocks at people and do things that everybody's doing out here in the street today. So you kind of let the steam off in dreams, good or bad. So that was something that I experienced. I got about 2 more minutes here. So I'll wrap this up for you. This finally led me to meditation. Webster's dictionary, by the way, said meditation was deep thinking. I said, oh boy, no one's going to be able to tell me what to do. So I started meditating based on that book I just shared with you, closing my eyes, remembering Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I am God. So I was teaching myself. And within months, I started seeing light. And all of a sudden, I remembered the pink light and the pink radiation and the pink warmth that I experienced in that accident. But this was growing. Months later, more. And so I'll just end by saying that by the time I was 16, I had probably over 400 out-of-body experiences that year. Easy. And this is 50 years ago. You can use your imagination about the rest of my life. But what I want to say, for me, what I have learned is that it doesn't stop at the near-death experience. The near-death experience is a blessing by God to let you know that there's more to this. So what do we do next? Because so I chose to meditate. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Experienced the tunnel. I've had all these different experiences that we can talk about another time. But my mission, if you want to call it that, a reason here, is to let people know that you can have an out-of-body experience through meditation, and you continue the process. If you want to merge deeper into the light and sound, quantum physics, Carolyn was just talking about, is proof that everything is made of light and sound, then meditation is the way. There's really no other way. Christ meditated for 19 years to become who he was. Kabir, they all meditated, and they perfected themselves spiritually. So that's my story right now.
Thank you
Don?
so much, Don. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you so much. And I just always love your message, because so many NDers think that that's the end. And you, like you pointed out, that's just the beginning. So I really love that. Okay, Eugene, are you ready to go? I want to introduce my friend Eugene Braxton. That has been instrumental. It only took us a couple of years to get this together, Eugene. But I want to thank you for all your help over the years and inspiration, and now making this a reality. So why don't you take off and share what you'd like to share?
Okay, thanks, Shaun. It's good to see you. And it's good to see the panelist and PMH Atwater, Dr. Atwater, who was or is my near-death mentor. I learned a lot from her. Just like Dr. Atwater said herself, and I agree, the scientists don't really study the ethnic populations the way they should, because as you can see, they have a lot of information that they get naturally. Not only that, the Blacks are highly spiritual and highly psychic, the Black females and males. They almost have to be these days with the way things are. But my son's sending me a message. But so there's a lot of spirituality in the Blacks, and there's a lot of psychic potential and capacity in the Blacks. This was studied by the Army back in the 30s. And not only that, the Blacks are predisposed to out-of-body experiences. A lot of this information was kept from them, just like a lot of medical information is kept from them. So there's a lot that death and life kind of go hand in hand with the Blacks. We're surrounded by that almost at all times, through the news, through the gangster neighborhoods that we have, through the police, through our own kind of self-destructive thinking. But spirituality is a way where anyone can rise up to a higher level where they actually feel that they should be. Like with me, I started having out-of-body experiences when I was 6, especially from age 6 to 16. I had, at the lowest count, 12,000 out-of-bodies in that time period. And I still have them, but not as heavily as I did in my younger years, 6 to 16. At 15, I had a near-death experience, a pretty big one. And Dr. Atwater was talking about how when kids have a near-death experience, it's different from the adults, because not only do they have a different worldview of things, but the experience reverberates in them heavily because of that age, and because they're like tape recorders at that age. So, and they're not preconceived with other ideas of religion, the cross, and all that. They kind of see it for what it is. I saw some interesting things. So I would go on the psychic abilities did increase with the near-death fully, almost too much for me to deal with at that age. But in my 20s and 30s, I began studying and developing it. I saw an article in the newspaper about where a near-death researcher was talking about the near-death and life after death. It seemed like he really believed it. He invited people to contact him. So I did. A couple months later, after I had forgotten about it, he contacted me back. I ended up doing research with him for 3 years. And that was when I met and switched over to PMH Atwater, who had actually had 3 near deaths and knew way more about it than this scientist, who was one of the biggest too. So he was a world authority, just like Dr. Atwater is. But she was she had more circumference as an experiencer, and I could easily relate to her than I could to him. Plus, she didn't try any side tricks. And I still keep in contact with Dr. Atwater. So the research kind of went better than what we had thought. And then in time, there was a third world authority, a Dr. Jacobs, a UFO world authority. But the near-death research went well, and it yielded a lot of information where if we have time later, I can get into it. That's about it, Shaun, I guess.
Thank you, Eugene. Loretta, can you re-put in Eugene's website? It didn't come out right. And I see PMH shaking her hand, so I know she wants to say something. And actually, I would like you to share PMH, if you remember what you were telling me about. You can unmute. If you can tell everybody what you were telling me about how where people live does influence their experiences. And remember what you were saying about people on the, the east side of the Berlin Wall, how their experience was different than. Yeah.
Well, I've done a great deal of research, foreign as well. And I've noticed, and I'm not the only one who has noticed some very interesting things here. I want to begin by saying that a lot of researchers have noticed that that people who live in very difficult situations, squalor perhaps, or very needy and troublesome situations, and maybe the family has lived like that for quite a while. And those people tend to have near-death experiences that are not as uplifting, that you don't see as much of the white light or again the uplifting experiences. Certainly they have experiences, but they don't tend to be as uplifting. Well, one of the things I noticed, I'm one of the people very busy with Berlin, when Berlin, East Berlin, West Berlin. I wasn't there on site, of course, but I worked with some who were and kept track of the experiences that were found once the wall was broken down and we could talk east-west. And what the researchers there were finding, and I myself, is that people in East Berlin, the communist side, who had near-death experiences, very seldom did any of them have an uplifting experience. It was certainly a different kind of experience. For some, it was scary. For some, it was fascinating. But it didn't have the uplifting qualities that you found in West Berlin. West Berliners had experiences like all of the rest of us do, tend to be very uplifting and loving and incredible qualities, but you didn't find them on the East Berliners. West, yes. East Berlin, no. And then I would begin to notice in the United States, those people, didn't matter what race, but those people who had a very difficult time in their life and were held to that, maybe generation after generation. In other words, there wasn't a lot of upliftment in the family at all. or interest in any spiritual kind of thing at all, and their near-death experiences seldom were uplifting. And I began to notice that connection between what I found in the United States and what we were finding in East and West Berlin. And then I began to see that certainly this is not true with everybody, but I began to see that there's a certain cloud, if you will, or a certain difficulty, or a certain tone down a little bit with those people who had been put down again and again and again, had a life that didn't have much much promise, would tend to have near-death experiences that were not as colorful as those who did, who had lives that were more open, and that interested me. Now, certainly I didn't find that with everybody, certainly, but I did find that pattern. And I noticed once at the near-death conference that they had in Texas, and there was a man there, by golly, he was African-American. He was a researcher, very good one. And he found that himself in a lot of the African-American communities, where people didn't have much of a chance at life, were held down a lot, and their near-death experiences were not as uplifting as those that were. So I offer this to you as an anomaly. I do not offer it in any way as across the board, but it is an anomaly. And any good researcher will look at anomalies and say, wait a minute here, is there something going on that we're not focusing on, that we're not thinking about? And I found this even with surgeons
You know what, PMH, can we pause that? Because I want to talk more about that later, but I want to make sure that we get, it's so fascinating, and you are just always such a wealth of information. Let's pause that, and then, so now we want to do what I would like to do. We're going to start again, but as you guys all think about the panelists, like, you know, like Don had given his main message, you know, what is your main takeaways, and also what do you want to talk about? But what I would like to ask, and maybe you all could answer, is everyone has left their body. And when you leave your body, you realize we're not our body. But in this dream, you're in a different color body. How does that, and you've all experienced, I know, oneness of the other side. Could you, you know, it is Black History Month. Could you talk a little bit about how that might be to you? Because so many people identify with their body. They think they are their body. And every one of you doesn't. Everyone knows you're not your body. You know that you've been everything. So maybe if we could just start with Venus, and if everyone can try to stick with about 2 minutes.
What do you want us to do?
I want you to talk about being outside of your body, when you're not your body, and then you come into your body, and in this world, there's separation. In that world, there's no separation. In that world, you know you're not your body. But it's African American History Month, and many people believe they are their bodies, whatever their body is, whatever color, whatever shape, whatever sex, whatever, they think they're their bodies. So maybe in 2 minutes, in your experience, you could talk about how you are or aren't your body, how you are or aren't your sex, how you aren't Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Let's start with V.
It was after my near-death experience, about 5-10 years later, when I started having lucid dreams. I'm not sure it was astral projection. Okay, and in those situations, I might find myself in a different sex, in a different color, but I still felt my consciousness there somehow. So one thing, the consciousness of love that was me was in these other places, was in these other individuals as they dealt with their daily lives. And can somebody, I don't know my past life experience. I say yet, because things are always changing.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like we don't know until we need to know. Like that's the way I looked at it. Okay, so who is next? Helen. Where are you, Helen? There you
Okay,
are. Take off your
Hi.
timer unless you
Take
want to
it
time
off.
yourself.
okay, somebody time me then. There are a couple specific things that I will mention with regard to this body business. Not only identifying one thing first, sometimes I get really impatient with people who are in a body and then spend their entire lives trying to get out of it. So I have a very strong appreciation for the physical body, what it takes to make one, what it takes to live in one, challenged or not, and that this is a moment of a great gift of grace that we get to inhabit these bodies. Now, I will follow that with these various experiences I have had. I have shown up as everything under the sun. And it's not just about race or sex even, but about perhaps a theme. For example, I was raised in a military family. And of course, here I am, this rabid pacifist. What is this pacifist doing being raised in a military family? And then I've had some experiences that were out of body, lucid dream, and near death, where I connected and discovered that I was this burly white man who was a headsman who chopped off heads for a living in 16th or 15th century England somewhere. And his job was to kill. And I'm in this time in this body as a Black woman going, oh, you violent people, I can't stand it. And then I looked at his life and he just wanted to do a good job. He was a headsman, and that was his training and probably his lineage. And he wanted to make sure he did it with one stroke. He wanted to do it with as little pain as possible. He was proud of his place in society. And that was a lesson for my rabid pacifism self here, because I figured out, I may be a pacifist now and I may not have a huge temper now, but I have a feeling I had plenty of opportunities to express it at some other time, in some other place, in some other form, as someone who was either Black or not Black or who knows what. Another one had to do with meeting people that I knew I would know in a life. I remember my current partner meeting her some time, a year or two, before we ever met. And we were both something else. I don't know whether we were Japanese or Korean or I don't know, but I was Asian. And I'm not in this life. And I've had all of these connections in this life my father spent a lot of time in Korea and had a passion for Korea and was there during the Korean War. My partner is Korean American, and I'm going, what is this business? Why are you guys connecting? I think that some of this is associated with not only this body in this time, but all the bodies I have inhabited throughout time and space and outside of time and space. And that is the gift of any particular moment in time, any particular moment in the body. And so I honor, even with this body that's breaking down, and I'm getting to be 80 here soon, in this body, the grace and the gift to be, I'm so glad I'm a Black woman at this point in history. I chose well. If I chose, some people believe you do, you don't. I believe I chose. And so that has taught me how to connect with others across cultural barriers, language barriers, times, but you name it. So I think all of this, and I won't tell you all these other stories, but there's something to be said. There is always an opportunity to be victim and victimizer. And we run the gamut of those experiences so we can learn. The last thing I'll say is I believe the only purpose of suffering is to end suffering. The only purpose of experiencing horror is to learn how to end the experience of horror. That's it.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. And you pointed out so rightly that we choose our experience. And, you know, Bernie Siegel was here earlier, but I shared this with you before, Helen. But what I love about your story, and what most people here probably don't know about Bernie Siegel, I'm sure everybody knows who he is, but he was a henchman also. And his current wife, who has passed on, he was a knight, and he chopped off her head in a past life, and her dog too. He killed her dog. And what's funny is Susan might remember the kind of dogs, but in this life, he actually runs a dog rescue for that breed of dogs. So many people think it's karma or whatever, but it's really wanting to experience those different things. So thank you for pointing that out. Norma, you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Very interesting listening to everything that has been said. But you know, right now I'm being urged to talk about the value of understanding our past lives. The body is an instrument. The earth is a school. And we bring the instrument to earth so that we can test, evaluate, absorb, consume, and then we take it back into spirit where we are co-creators, you see, of planets and planetary ambitions. And then we discover perhaps that we still got a piece missing. And then what I've seen at the Akashic record is that you get together with your main guide. And in my case, just to give you an idea how long you journey with a guide, I had a guide, and we said goodbye after 3,000 years of journeying together. And we both agreed that we learned from each other, and he went on to whatever else he had to do. And then I found myself back on Earth to absorb lessons. Think of a classroom. You would not, let's say, for example, have a master's degree in science and enter another university to try to take another master's degree course. Can you see that? So every time we reincarnate, we sit with our guides and we sit with advisors and we examine what we have learned through the course of reincarnation and what there is more to learn and to experience. And one of the things I think when we are in a physical body, we forget, or maybe nobody tells us this: adversity is the teacher of wisdom. I can read it in 16 books, read it, put it away, even reread it. What I've done is I've gathered information. I have some knowledge, but I'm still not sure whether that knowledge is truth, or am I sure that I can really trust it? But you see, when I designed that next lifetime so that I can experience it, when I leave with the experience, I leave with the knowledge, I leave with the information. So we have to get on this planet to the place of stop the pointing of the finger and stop this idea of what is good and what is evil. Because whatever it is that we have come to live, we have come to live it so we can refine ourselves as co-creators with the universe, or the source that is in charge of the universe. You see what I'm saying? Because I can't manage evil if I don't know it exists. If I've not been exposed to some of what that means, I really can't understand it. I hope I'm making sense. So what I did, I watched the progression of past lives, and I watched them in relation to where I was standing at the time, 26 years of age, and where I was standing at the time, and understanding why it is that I chose many of the experiences in the lifetimes that I did.
And Norma, in the next go round, I want you to share 2 of those important past life experiences. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go to Dawn. Oh wait, I'm sorry, it's Caroline. Caroline's next. Let's go to Caroline.
To answer your question, as I said before, from birth, there was a connection I had. And from birth, I never identified with the color of my skin. I know that I am African-American. My great-grandfather was 100% Irish, and I had a great-grandmother that was Cherokee. So I know that I'm all 3, and my children, I'm married, my ex-husband is Chinese, Jamaican, his father was Chinese. And so my children all have Chinese, African-American, Irish, and Native American. So it's a melting pot. And I never, from birth, ever identified with the color of my skin, because it I think I was born knowing you've been it all. So that's pretty much the best way I could answer your question that you asked.
Thank you. Okay. Dawn. Dawn is next. There you go.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I love what our previous speaker just said, and I kind of go along with her. My grandfather was Caucasian. My great-grandmother had Algonquin and Lakota blood. My father was African-American. I'm sure he was mixed. In fact, if you add an S and an H to my last name, it becomes a German name. So at some point, I probably had some German slave master thing going on. So therefore, on the earth side, all my life, I have not been able to take sides with anyone. And at the same time, I've not been able to be on anyone's side. I always looked at myself as a universal human being. What I can say for me, the more experiences I've had within, be they NDE or OBE, I just have this understanding, this knowing and experience that I am a child of God, a child of invincible light. And I bring that back with me every time I come back, but then I assume the identity of the body that I'm in. But even while I'm here in this body, I do realize that separation is an illusion. And because the world lives in that illusion doesn't mean that I have to live in it. So I've chosen not to live in it. And some people get upset with me, especially people of color. They get upset with me because they think I'm saying that I'm not a man of color, I'm not black and all that. I've stopped listening to that years ago because I realized they're still in the world of separation. And as long as we're in separation, we're never going to heal, and we're never going to be able to become one with the love that everybody has. I hear two people always talking about love. You know, Reverend Norma Edwards talks about love, and Carolyn talk a lot about love. And I'm not saying that anybody else didn't. But what I'm saying is that the more you experience, this is all about experience on the inner realm. You know, Christ said there are many mansions in the house of my Father. He didn't say there was just an astral plane in here. He didn't say it was just over there and over here. He said there are many mansions. If you read the Yogananda and Blavatsky's works, they talk about the astral realms and the sub-realms there, the causal realms and the realms there. So there are many realms there. Rumi says we should be spending half of our time in the inside and half of our time out here. So the more you meditate, the less sleep you need. People say, I don't have 2 hours. I don't have time to meditate. Well, if you're meditating enough, you need less and less and less and less sleep. I know people that walk around on this earth with maybe 1 or 2, 3 hours of rest because they've elevated themselves so much they just don't require it anymore. It's like you don't require a lot of food anymore. So to answer your question, Shaun, I think it's an excellent question. For me, the more I'm meditating, the more I'm experiencing within, then I'm completely lost in this divisive stuff, and that even I'm a male, because the soul is neither gender. So we're experiencing nothing but love when we're inside. So when you come back, you bring us some of that with you, but you have to be smart enough, to remember. Well, I do my mother's this, I'm this, I have a job, this, and so you just blend in and associate and do what you have to do. That's it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Eugene. I just want to remind everybody, so that we have some experiencers here that would like to share their stories, new experiencers. If we don't get to it, I put the link to the chat, and I just want to remind everybody that on the 21st, next Tuesday, we'll have a sharing group that's in case you can't share your stories here tonight, that you can share then. So I just wanted to remind everybody while I'm thinking about it. And I will leave it to you, Eugene.
Yeah, about your question with the, out of the body, in the body. We're actually, human beings are physio-spiritual by nature. Like we have a dual physiology. One is physical and one is spiritual. Also, we have a dual nature and a dual consciousness to go with those dual physiologies. So let me throw this down. So the physical side, and then we have the spiritual side. The spiritual is invisible. The physical is physical. But what the person wants to do is to become fully, completely whole by uniting the conscious awake mind with the subconscious mind, which is usually asleep. It wakens slightly during sleep, and the more those two minds interact and work together, you become 360-degree yourself. You're cemented in both mind and spirit. So the person, there is no separation. The person has a division of themselves. That spiritual aspect is a division of themselves. And your subconscious mind is the conscious mind of your spirit body, and your own conscious mind is the boss of both of those minds. But your conscious mind is the boss of this awake, as your subconscious mind is the mind of your spirit body. Once those two minds begin communicating together, you can literally have anything you want in this world. But by the time you get to that level, there's not a lot of things that you will want here. Even though they may seem like polar opposites, the physical and the spiritual, one physical, one invisible, they are actually, a singular duality. Just like when you prolonged concentration during meditation, advanced meditation produces a merging into things where one becomes one with one's object of focus. It's the same thing with the minds and with meditation and other things. But yeah, the concentration, the duality. So we're really one single unit with deviations. And so there's some people who say we have several etheric bodies, but there is a spirit body and a physical body, and they both have separate minds. And once those two minds communicate with each other, a lot of things happen, a lot. And it's all thanks to God, of course. But that's it for me, Shaun. Yeah.
Great explanation, Eugene. Oh, great. Okay, so we'll now go to Venus, and Venus, you can change on, if you want to talk about something else that's important to you, it's up to you. Or if you want to keep talking about what we're talking about, but or if you want to talk about your particular messages that you'd like to share, whatever you would like to do.
Okay, I just like to share. I'm glad that I'm here and I can share, and I encourage others too, because you listen, you understand. And in this lifetime, I know I've had out-of-body astral projection experiences. And what's repeating in my life at this time is shared death experiences. This is counting. It was like 7 people I just happened to be at the right place at the right time to help them make that transition. So now I have learned that my current calling is to be a death doula, because I have learned that my mission in using meditation, one of the blessed instruments in this life, that way I can share my love and be of service. And that's what I try to teach my patients and my patients' family members.
Well said. Thank you. Helen. Helen?
Okay, somebody keep track of me here. I want to mention 3. I loved the comments about shared death experience, and I thought I would mention a little bit about that. One was in my relationship with a former partner who passed, we went through a long period of sustained illness, and she was in a coma for 9 days. And the night that she passed, hospice was in the house and was helping out. The night that she passed, I was working with her body, even though she could no longer communicate. After she died, I went to talk with a medium or a psychic or somebody, an intuitive, kind of like the work I do. And this person who did not know me from Adam started talking about, after my mother interrupted a few times, started talking about the things I had done with this person to prepare her body for death when there were only two of us in the room. So if there is both this sense of the possibility of sharing that moment with someone, it can come in a variety of ways. And she showed up the next day after she died in her favorite outfit, about 20 years younger. When my dad passed, we were in different states. And my mother tells me that while he was dying, just before he died, he was an extraordinary human being. But just before he died, he said, I was in the room with him with my crew. And I'm an intuitive. After I left the university, I did it. I've done it professionally. And that's what I call my guides, my crew. And he told my mother that I was there in the room with him with my crew. You know, what do you do with that? All of those years of misunderstanding and estrangement and, you know, are you Christian enough? Are you this enough? Are you that enough? Everything is complete in that moment. I'm dying. My daughter is here with me with her crew. All is well. So that's it. I know the 2 minutes are gone. I have other stories, but those two will do it for the time being.
Norma, you ready? And remember, you got to unmute. And remember the two, got to unmute again. There you go. Wait, oops, got muted again. Try it again, sorry. Nope, you're still muted. Bottom left is where the unmute is. You're still muted. Bottom left of your screen, there should be an unmute.
Can you unmute her?
No, unfortunately, I can't. I can just
Ask her to move her mouse. She's not seeing it because she's not moving her mouse.
did you hear what Caroline said? Move your mouse around. You should see a notice that the host is asking you to unmute. Are you seeing a notice that the host is asking you to unmute?
I think somebody's helping her. Can we come back to her, move on?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go to Caroline. Norma, you just, when you figure out your microphone, just do a shout out and we'll go to Caroline.
Yeah, the most important thing to me is when I had my awakening, and I was awakened before the traumatic experiences happened, and that was very important. But in 2011, my son was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, and doctors had said he wasn't going to live. I was awake. I was awake to oneness. I knew that this was a dream of my own creation. I knew that everything I was experiencing at that time, I was creating, but I was not ready for my son to leave here before me. But I experienced a miracle. My son literally pulled himself off life support and we went home together. And from that miracle, I promised God I would never, ever, ever stop thinking. I didn't know what was going to happen the next day. So, but I was blessed with 3 more years with my son. That was in 2011. He did transition in 2014. When he transitioned, I was at complete peace. I knew he wasn't going anywhere. I knew there was no such thing as death. I knew it was a soul plan that he and I made. And I knew it was his soul's time. I know that every soul comes into this life experience in perfect divine timing, and every soul leaves this life experience. So I was at peace, and that was July 1st, 2014, 8.5 years ago. And 6 months after that, I launched my podcast, Awake to Oneness Radio. Spirit said to me, you're here for a reason. Your son is not gone. He's still with you, but you're here for a reason. And your reason is to spread the truth of oneness. Unity consciousness is where we're going as humanity. Then just 2 months ago, my daughter, she was my oldest, she transitioned on December 5th, 2022, 2 months ago. And I was again at complete peace. Both my children are in spirit. They're both with me, but I know that I could not have gone through those 2 experiences if I wasn't fully awake to the truth that there is no death. All there is eternal life. And it was a soul plan that I had with my children, and I'm here for a reason. So though their passing has just launched me to do my soul purpose, what I came here to do, and that is sharing the truth of oneness. Thank you. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you, Caroline. And, I just want to say, I want to reiterate that what an important message you share with people is that, it's awful when a parent loses their children. But as you pointed out, we have these soul agreements, and that they chose to come for this short period of time to help you in your awakening. So I applaud you for sharing that message with so many people who have lost children. Norma, do we have you back?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. I lost
Okay.
the link for a moment there, but I'm here. But I think what you wanted me to kind of share with the group is how I know there are a lot of people seeking to understand and to know what their past life experiences have been. And what I'd like to say to these people is that once you find out, there is a requirement that you follow through with whatever it is that you're supposed to follow through with. If you're taken to a past life experience, it's because there's some element of that experience that has to be worked out in this life. And I'd like to share just one of my experiences, which I think would be kind of very realistic. One of the experiences I had at the Akashic Record was that I was part of a tribe. I was Black at the time, and I was part of a tribe, and there was tribal war. And while the war was going on, the tribe that I was aligned with, they were losing the war, and they were losing, people quite a lot. And so they decided that they would muster all the boats that they had and put the women and children in these boats and push them off to sea in the hope that enough of us would survive and be able to regenerate, you see. And I found myself in a boat with 23 other women. And the boat sank. And I died a very horrific death, because I didn't know which, my children were not with me. They were in another boat, and there was a tremendous amount of fear and a tremendous amount of anguish. And in re-experiencing that at the record, I wrote into my program that is one of those things that I would balance out in this lifetime. Well, it's a long story to how I got there, but would you believe that I spend 3 days a week in water aerobics with 23 other women? And by doing that, I have lost my fear of water. I have given up all that fear that I carried for so many years, because you see, when you have a life experience and it's extremely traumatic and you've not had time to kind of live it out or balance it out, then what happens is that information gets pushed all the way into the supraconsciousness level, with the understanding that it may take 2 or 3 lifetimes before you can come back to process it, if you see what I mean. So that I was reminded in every single one of my lifetimes that I reviewed that there was phenomenal fear that found its way into the supraconscious level. The supraconscious level is the level where it will be very extremely hard to dig into when you're in a lifetime, unless you've written it into the program. So I obviously wrote it into the program, and here am I now having the time of my life with 23 other women, and we are like family. We laugh, we joke, and I find that I'm very, very comfortable in water. So in that regard, I have been able to balance that fear, because you see, particularly as African American and as Black people or Indigenous people who have found ourselves traumatized by historical experiences, we carry a tremendous amount of fear. And if we keep reincarnating in the Black experience, is an indication that we're holding a lot of fear, and that the lifetime comes when we have to take that responsibility and rewrite it into our program so that we can come and we can work it out. So I hope that will help, people who have an urge perhaps to want to know what lives have they lived, what lifetimes did they experience. And what I want to encourage them is, oh yes, I've had the lifetime when I was a nobleman, I had a lifetime when I had power, but that's not so important in this life. And
let's pause for the next one, because you have to tell the most favorite 2 lives that you didn't tell this time. You know what I'm talking about. So, so that's the next go around. I'm gonna make you tell it. So, okay, so Caroline, oh, thank you. Don.
Yes, what am I talking about?
Whatever you want to talk about. You can change the subject.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't. Well, I just, I would like to come back to the fact that, we're all here children of one God, one creator, one universe, one love. Several of the Eastern scriptures, even in Islam, Christian scriptures, they say love is God and God is love. So once I understood that, I've never really separated the two. I think love, I think energy, consciousness. And this is ocean of all consciousness, and we're children of that. And I think that is the most important thing. If we get nothing else out of anything, that's the most important message. And I think the more we try to have conscious contact with that power within us, which is through meditation, if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. It took me a long time to realize that every time I meditated, I brought some of that back with me. That every time I entered an etheric or astral realm, whatever the peace and the bliss and the love or that I was experiencing there, every time I came back, I was able to bring some of that love, some of that bliss and peace with me. And I know I'm willing to bet almost everybody here has had an experience where you've walked into a room, because some of you have done talks and seminars and things, or you've been even in a store, and a lot of times it's children, but people will come up to you and out of nowhere they're like, you have something that I want. I don't know what that is, but I sure like to have some of it. So the soul, on the level of soul, we're all vibing at the level of soul the same. So no matter what the age or the gender or whatever the individualized physical form is. This is why children are still, look, when a child's in the womb, it's in the astral plane. It's not here. You see the baby smiling all the time. This baby's happy. Never does much until it gets hit on his little behind, right? Cries a little bit because we just yanked it out of a beautiful experience. It's been for 9 to 10 months. It's been experienced this beautiful bliss of the astral realm. So we all bring, that's why we love babies so much. We like to be around them. But people from the level of soul, when they're around us, I bet you everyone on this panel has experienced what I'm talking about. You've been somewhere, and maybe if your family member out in the store or somewhere. I used to go to a park bench and meditate all the time. And the people didn't realize I could hear everything they were saying when they walked by. And some people would want to get up real close to you and you'd hear things, is he dead? Mommy, look, he's something, what's going on? And then they can feel something. Say, oh wow, you feel that energy? I used to meditate in the chair in my bedroom all the time for years. And that room and that little space got so charged. When people would come up, I'd say, well, if you want to come see me, you have to sit in this chair over here for a little while. And they'd get in that chair like it was an electrical shock, hot seat. Somebody would hit the chair and bounce up, because people from the level of soul could feel the energy. You concentrate that energy over every day over. You can charge a space, you can charge a room, you can charge your car, and people will come into these spaces and feel it. So they get a piece of it too. So I'm just saying, for me, in all of my experiences, love has been the most potent, powerful energy that is, and we can accumulate it, and we can emanate that out. It emanates. We don't really have to do anything. When Christ healed people, he wasn't even trying to do anything. His focus was on God, on love, and so people touched him, and that's what they got. And the power of love heal anything. I don't need any go here and get this operation, do all this and that. If I'm connected, if I get the conscious connection that I'm talking about, we get enough of that, the body will receive all the love it needs from the soul, and it'll take care of itself. So that's my little sharing in this part.
Thank you. Two things that you said that I love is so many people, they see the light in other people, and they don't realize it's an inside job. Like you're saying, through meditation, everybody has this light, this access available to them. We all can be our own guru. And I love that you pointed that out. And the other thing that you reminded me is many people I know, and that we all know, and perhaps some in this room, would say, oh, I've never had any spiritually transformative experiences. Yet I can guarantee that everybody has. They just are not aware of what it is, or maybe don't feel worthy of it. But you reminded me of that too. So thank you. Eugene.
Hey, Shaun. Yeah, some interesting comments. And it's good hearing everyone, different aspects of reincarnation, the meditation. In my research, we were able to find some interesting things. Like, for example, we have the length of time between death and reconsciousness after death. And people go through several distinct stages when they die. And I'm going to read them off to you here. Here they are. First, this is a struggle for life or death. Like in my case, I was drowning. I was stuck in the bottom of a lake, up to my knee in the muck. So I was struggling to live or die, struggling hard too. So it's a struggle for life and death. There's the fall, where you stop struggling, whether you're drowning or you've been stabbed, you stop struggling, you can struggle no more. And you literally fall down to die. Then paralyzation or rigor mortis sets in, and it sets in slowly, comes from the feet up. When you're paralyzed, your eyes are locked straight ahead, if they're open. And that's why you'll see in the films where the victim can see the killer standing in front of them, even though the killer thinks they're dead. They can still literally see, but they can't move. It takes a while to die, at least 6 minutes to fully die. So your paralyzation, then you have death. Well, there's right before you completely flatline, there's a comfort zone where if you're in any pain, that immediately stops. And you're enveloped in like a comforting, velvety thing where you know everything's going to be all right, even if you do die. That's really important too. Then there's death itself, where the last two things you hear are your heartbeat, and then you hear a loud booming sound. The last two things to go off are your eyesight and your hearing. Then you hear a loud booming sound, and then everything is black. Then you go into what's called the dark void. It's it would be like being paralyzed inside of a coffin, like that. And the dark void, just like PMH said, Dr. Atwater said, it's kind of like a spiritual dressing room where you're really transferring you're transferring from physical to spiritual body. So you're paralyzed, so that can take place. This also happens in the out of body too. The paralyzation right before the spirit body releases from the physical. So that dark void, and it's completely dark, that's what that is. Then you have death itself, approximately 15 to 23 seconds, the same time it takes to come out of your body during an out of body experience. That's when you will slowly rise up out of the physical. You'll bubble up and you'll regain consciousness after death. You'll look down, you'll regain consciousness after death, and you'll see yourself slowly materializing. You can look at your arms and see right through them. That's an interesting feature too. Then there's a realization of time and space where you see your dead body right next to you, realize that you're still alive, and are super elated because you're not dead. You are alive as God promised would occur. So that's the death process.
Thank you, Eugene. So I just realized that we, of course, everybody knows we started late, but we are now up to a little over our 2 hours. So what I would like to do is, hopefully everybody, wants to hang around a little while more, but I certainly understand if you have other things to do. But what I would like to do is if we could go around one more time, focus on trying to be 2 minutes and concise as to what takeaway you would like, everyone. I realize, we could go all night, like I said in the beginning, but let's do that. And then Norma, what I want you to say, what I want you to share. And then we could go ahead and we can take some questions for whoever, is willing to stay, but I don't want anyone to feel like, they're dying and they need to, wrong choice of words, but they're tired, need to go to sleep or whatever. I just want to give you the permission if you need to leave, but also if our panel is willing, we'll stay a little bit longer to answer a few questions. I also want to remind everybody that we will have our sharing group on Tuesday, and pretty much all of our panel comes to our sharing group, so it's not like you couldn't come there also to ask them more questions, and then of course share your experiences. So with that, if we could go to Venus, and then also please, for the audience, think about what send me questions that you want to ask, and we can ask a few questions. But Venus, what would you like to share as the parting message for you?
I'm going to share what I heard from my husband as he trans over to our higher side. And he reminded me to meditate, to be of service. And that would be the love that I needed. And that's what I'd like people to remember. Thank you.
Thank you. And he's one of your guardian angels, right?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Helen.
Yes, hi, and let me take this off here if I can get rid of this. There we go. I wanted to talk about this business of near death, out of body, shared death as a tool also for, and I think Norma talked about this, for understanding the current lifetime. And I'll bring up one example of that. I had for probably a couple of years, a series of dreams, powerful dreams, corroborable dreams where I found information about these individuals in books. And in one, I was a young girl, 10 years old, Polish Jew, at the beginning of what would be called later the Holocaust. But there was a period where there were mobile killing units. And apparently Hitler had sent around groups to round up people, take them out to the countryside somewhere, and just shoot them down. And in that mobile killing unit, my family and I were killed. So this is in Poland. This is in the 1930s. What has that got to do with today? When I went to work at a particular university and was an academic administrator, it turns out that one of the vice presidents at that university was the man that I realized had killed me in the 1930s. Now, sounds really woo-woo, but I'm just going to go for it. Was the man who had killed me in that mobile killing unit scene. What did I do with that information? First of all, you can't talk about it. So I go up there and say, you killed me when I was a Polish Jew and you were a German. And it turns out that that man in this time was Jewish American. And once I made the connection between us, because our relationship was a bit fraught and we didn't know each other that well, so why is there all this strain between us and tension? Once I figured that out, I was able to be neutral in that workplace situation, in that workplace environment where it didn't really matter one way or the other. We were no longer required, and I think you talked about that a little bit, Norma and Don too, that you work these things out, and once you get it, you're done. We were complete in that moment. As an academic, it helped that in those dream journals, I found the names of those individuals in a book called The Destruction of the European Jews when I was teaching at university, that these elements happened. The village in my dream was there. The name of the person who killed me was there. So these are not just experiences that are on the inside, which they are, but sometimes you can also get evidence that these things occurred in real time. And I would have you consider that some of your personal and professional relationships you might want to explore, say through dreams or automatic writing or just thinking or whatever, meditating, and ask what else is there between us that's entering this relationship now. And then once you get it, click, it's done. You go on with your life. I'll stop there.
Beautiful, thank you. Norma. Need to unmute. There you go.
Thank you for that, Helen. I can relate very well to what you just said. Very, very, very well. And this is why it's important that we encourage people who have had near-death experiences to kind of get into a sharing group, begin to interact with others who've had the same experience, because then we can assist, we can help each other on this journey that we're on. But I see Shaun is not going to close this session until I share this one. One of my 7 near-death experiences, I found myself as a child. I was a Black child, and I was with my mother in the fields picking cotton, the cotton fields picking cotton. And as we moved along, I could hear, you know, when you are at the record, you are not just seeing or re-experiencing, you're re-experiencing the event that took place. And so you feel the emotions. I could feel myself very, very afraid because I can hear the sound of the the hoof of the horse coming down the aisles. And I can also hear when that whip hit the back of a person who could not fulfill their quota. And of course, I'm a child, and I know that by the time he gets to our row, I too will feel the whip on my back because I'm a child and I cannot fulfill the quota. And it was a kind of terrifying kind of fear that I experienced at the record. And as soon as I had experienced that, then the screen changed. And when it changes at the Akashic record, when the screen changes, first you get a pattern, and then out of the pattern you will see whatever experience it is that they want you to have. When the screen changed, there we were. It might seem as though it was the same cotton field. And there I was on the horse. And now I'm the master man, and I'm working that whip. Having experienced that at the record, when I came back fully awake, and you see, if there's a message I want to send to people who have had near-death experiences, the near-death experience is only the beginning. It took 8 spiritual teachers, many, many years of work to be able to work all this stuff out. And of course, what that did for me was took away all that deep-seated feelings and anger and what fear that one experienced. When you understand that we live every single experience, we have to, because, you know, we boast that we are co-creators with God. Well, Earth is the training ground so that you can get your certification as a co-creator. And in order to do that, you've got to release all that anger and energy and put into correct perspective who, when, where, and why. Now are you happy, Shaun?
Yes.
It changed my whole experience. And then, of course, my husband and I retired to the South. We live in the Carolinas now. And it's made a big difference that I can interact now with people here who need to understand. You've been there, you've done that, you've worn a t-shirt, and now it's time to come to reconciliation. Because again, getting back to Tutu, my humanity and your humanity and everybody else's humanity is on the same track.
And
if we are to help one another and assist one another so that we can become the full spiritual entities that we are, we have got to learn, we've got to listen, we've got to understand, we've got to share so that we can grow. Yeah. You were saying something, Shaun?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what you were saying, that, you know, these are not karmic, you know, a lot of people think these are punishments, but we want to experience everything, and we can't do it all in one life, one body, and that is part of the message that you're sharing, that I hope that people understand, that these are all, we're here to grow and learn. And so being the slave master and the slave, you're getting to experience which some people might say is balance, right? You get to see both sides of, because it's only here that we get to experience that duality, right? So yeah, and so that's why I really like your story, because it helps people understand that our experiences are not punishments. They are because we want to experience as much as we can.
It goes deeper. It goes deeper, Shaun. Many of us, when we leave this lifetime, have already been assigned to groups that will become overseers, if you like, of planets. Our training ground is Earth. So once we've experienced what it's like to have brought forth violence and discord, etc., once we leave this earth and we take our place as a team leader to do some cosmic work and to do some planetary work, we will now be able to ensure that what we have experienced does not get repeated on the planets over which we have to oversee.
Thank you.
We
That's
are
beautiful.
on an amazing journey. We have amazing things in front of us, and we got to open up.
We do. And I want to remind everybody, because people are starting to drop off, that if you go to the Facebook group Hawaiian IANDS, there is the live stream, and you can also put questions there that then all of our panelists can answer as well as you have more questions. So I just wanted to stick that in. If you just go to Facebook, and then it's Hawaiian IANDS Facebook group, and you can ask everyone your questions there as well. But I want to get to everybody first, and then we'll ask a few questions, and then we will part for the night. Caroline.
I have said many times what you were saying. Karma is balance. That's what it is. And we want to experience everything, and we have experienced the opposite of everything. So you've been a slave, you've been a slave master. You've been a German soldier, you've been the Jew. You've been it all. And the thing is, actually, in spirit, we ask certain souls to do that. We say, oh, will you be mean to me when we get down? And the soul up there doesn't want to. The great book I always share and mention to Shaun, it's a children's book called The Little Soul in the Sun. And if you read that book, it's by Neil Donald Walsh. It explains that we are the director, we are the cast, we write the script for everybody in our life. And the person that is really mean to us, we ask them to do that. So it can help us to remember. And from the human level, it seems crazy, but we came here to experience it all. So if we feel hatred, when we wake up, we remember, wait a second, I did that in another lifetime. So what you're hating, you've already done. So it's all, I love, matter of fact, when I met Norma at the IANDS in 2019, she shared that story of her being the slave boy and in the next life being the master. And I'm like, oh, that is so beautiful, because I wish people would really understand that truth, that we are it all. We are one. Unity consciousness is where we're heading. We're getting there as a humanity, and it's wonderful. Thank you, Shaun.
That's right. Thank you. And we all have people in our lives that have played that role really well as the narcissist or whatever. I find myself many times saying, thank you, you did your job. Now, can you stop? So thank you. Dawn,
Yes.
you're next.
Yeah, everybody was talking about karma a little bit, so let me try to follow up on that one. For me, karma is simply action and reaction. Quantum physics can display what karma is. And so I think sometimes it's just good to talk on experiences. Lord Krishna was at the time of these kings, and one of the kings was blind. And he went to Lord Krishna and he said, I just don't understand why I am blind in this lifetime. I'm a king, and how am I going to perform and do? And I'm blind. I can't see, but what on earth did I do to be blind in this lifetime? So Lord Krishna said, okay, sit still. And he put his attention on him, and he came back like 7 lifetimes. He came back and he said, I didn't see anything in those 7 lifetimes that I would have done to be blind in this one. So he did it. He took him back much further. And by the way, Rumi says we've all been here hundreds of times. And so, like Carolyn said, we've all been male, we've all been female, we've all been everything, because we're spiritual beings here in these bodies that have the human experience. And the only way we're going to have the human experience is to come back, be a 7-foot basketball player, be a very short person, be a heavy person, be this, be a woman many times, be a man many times, be a victim many times, be a perpetrator many times. I used to ask people about their past lives. Nobody did anything bad. Everybody was somebody good. Oh, I was a Mona Lisa. I was this. You never hear anybody say, we all have. Everybody's been a perpetrator. Everybody's been this and that, hundreds of lifetimes. So he takes this, Lord Krishna takes this king back to his 107th lifetime. And he saw something where he had taken a bow and arrow and he had killed an animal with it. And the animal suffered from that. I maybe got it in the eye. I think he shot it in the eye. He wasn't trying to, but he was trying to kill it. So he ended up getting the thing in the eye. The poor animal suffered a lot. So he was able to see that in the 107th life, what he had done to help him be blind in this lifetime. Now bring it up to an actual experience that I had. I used to work for this company up here in the Baltimore area, and I got real close to this guy, and I guess he was very psychic, and he understood a lot of the things that I was talking about. They say you'll never find spiritual people like us in certain places. That's not true. You could be out on a garbage truck, and all of a sudden you bump into someone that's really tuned into you and wants to know more about what are you talking about. So he got real close. We got pretty close, and he said someday soon somebody's going to hit me with a car. I'm going to die. I'm going to get hit by a car, and they're going to drag my body with the car several, yards or something. He kept reminding me about this. I kept not paying attention. So what happened was I said, how do you know this? You have such confidence. You have, he said, because I know what I did in my last life. I took this person and put a noose around them, and I was on a horse, and I took their body and drug it through the street until the person died. So he said, in this lifetime, they have to come back and do it to me. And sure enough, I think maybe just a few months later, there was a car accident, and it was near the workplace. And they talked about how the body was dragged 60 yards or something like that. And it was this man. So sometimes karma can be the thing that where we experience the situation right away. There's no wait time. It can come back in this lifetime or the very next one, or sometimes it can happen over several lifetimes. So there's no really answer to it. It's different for everybody. Everybody's karma over hundreds of lifetimes is very different. And that's why we're all so different. But the most powerful people, they realize spiritually that they're one and not separate. Harriet Tubman had vision. She could see things, and she'd fall right out, and sometimes she passed out, and sometimes she'd sit and meditate. He was getting a lot of her guidance from inside, how to get these people to be free. He was being guided inside. So, this is a testament to her power, to her inner power, how great she was. You can go do a little research on it. Somewhere, you'll find some book where you see that they'll word it differently, but the bottom line is she left her body and she had visions and she was being guided inside, just like some of the people we talk to. I just thought I'd share that stuff about the karma thing.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up about Harriet, because, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're here to honor these people who had these experiences and didn't really talk about them. They just went and did great things. And, you know, because they didn't have safe sharing groups like ours to share. So I'm really glad that you brought her up. Thank you very much. Eugene.
Hey, Shaun. Yeah, I liked everything that was said. For my kind of like summation, the research I was involved in, I want to just, there are three things that I just want to list off real quick that we found. We found that a man's primary purpose on this earth plane is to find themselves, then find their God within themselves and by themselves. That's kind of like an esoteric purpose, prime purpose too, to find yourself, find your God within yourself and by yourself. Also, the spirit body goes through several distinct deviations. This is all in my book. Spirit body goes through several distinct deviations after death. And whenever there's a deviation in one's levels of consciousness, there's also an equal and opposite deviation of the invisible spirit body. And at the same time, acting as a triad, there's also a deviation in dimensional time and space. That's how you go from here to there. The next thing, the scientists I work with were concerned with what they called the controller. The controller is an omnipresent force that penetrates all the paranormal corridors and controls them if it desires to. The scientists didn't release this information to the public because it represented a God force or the opposite of a God force. So since I wasn't officially connected as a working employee of those universities, I looked into it myself. And what I found is in my second book, and it connects to the life after death. So that's the three things I wanted to go over, Shaun.
Thank you. You know what I'm going to do? We have one important question, and I want the rest of the questions, if you guys can put it in the Facebook chat. But there's really one important question that I'm even going to answer, because this is something that has affected me as well. And so what she says is she's had 3 NDEs, and she would like to hear from the panel. She sees everyone's hearts, or I'm going to actually say it in first person. Bear with me. I see everyone's hearts and souls since my NDE. Often their human behavior does not reflect the beauty of their hearts and souls. How do they discern this when the hearts and souls are so beautiful, yet the behavior is completely the opposite? And how do they deal with those kind of individuals? And I will just share my input, because that's actually one of the biggest problems that I have had, and I think most near-death experiencers have, in that we do see the beauty of the perfect souls in everyone here. The problem is they may not see it, and they're coming from an unconscious. And I think that's probably the hardest thing for most of us, because we trust unconditionally, we love unconditionally, and we don't necessarily see the egos and the other stuff. And it can be very hurtful. And I will just share from me that because I know that I can't be hurt, I am a soul, it's just a body. I let people, probably too much, but I would rather err on caution and let that person, if they act out of unconscious, so be it. But it is really challenging because we do see people's perfect souls that they themselves honestly may not see for 10,000 years and many lifetimes. But if all of you want to share your experience with that question and how you deal with that, because I know everybody here has experienced that, why don't you all share that, and then we'll come to a close. Venus?
At this time, when I meet new people, I can't see their heart. And I've even lost the perception of their auras. But I know I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and try to be as positive as I can. And then if it doesn't work out well, I let it go. It has happened. It is over. And that's the greatest part of forgiveness for myself, because maybe that was a lesson I was here to learn. Or maybe that was a lesson the other person was supposed to experience, someone who let it go. So that's what I try to carry forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And you reminded me, we don't know. You know, we don't know what they're going through. So thank you.
Mhm.
Helen.
Well, thank you for that question, whoever asked it. The short answer for me is that's why I do the work I do. It is getting to that place of knowing, not just from the head or just from the heart, but some kind of fusion wisdom that through grace permits me to see the soul. I think that's the gift. I spent 45 years in the university, very strong in the left brain. And in my 50s, decided I had to do this other work, which is to be an intuitive, a professional intuitive. And I've discovered that it doesn't take a lot. You can do training and their techniques and workshops and all of that. But through those years of training, all it takes is a single breath for me to switch gears and see with the whole self. And one of the things that happens when I do session work with people, you know, I'll say, tell me your name, and I won't know anything about them. And I start with something that I couldn't possibly know. I scribble something down and figure out what it is, start from not knowing. And someone who looks one way, visibly, physically, I see this whole other presentation of the self who is, and is probably who is calling to say, help me be all of me that you see. So in many ways, I feel fortunate to be able to go beyond, like all of us, other human beings, African Americans and others, we're all mutts, you know. I'm a mutt too, just like everybody else. But from that simple tool of taking one moment, one deep breath, and then look at that person with different eyes, it's amazing, surprise. And that's always the thing that's important to me. I look for and expect and get surprise. I will give one quick example of someone with whom I was very close, who suffered from what's called dissociative identity disorder. Some people call it multiple personality. And that person could be very wise, could be charming, could be fabulous, and the next minute could be cruel, abusive, incomprehensible. It took me a long time to find that place where the whole person was, because you got to sort that stuff out. We're not trained to do that. But if you can do that in that kind of dramatic situation, I think we can do it in the workplace. One question: what's the one thing I need to know about this coworker who drives me nuts? As an intuitive question, what's the one thing I need to know about this person? Take the first answer you get and act on it. I'm going into a meeting with somebody and I'm scared. What's the one thing I need to know about the meeting? One breath, one deep breath, switch channels, and you're there. So I think it's much less complicated than we make it. And the talent, the heart, the fusion wisdom is only a breath away.
Thank you. That is beautiful. Okay, Norma. Have to unmute. Can you unmute? Bottom right or bottom left, I think. Okay, you figure out unmuting and we'll let Caroline go next.
Okay. Basically, I kind of covered this when I said, when you know that you gave that person a script, that person that is, you know, making you crazy, you actually asked them to do that. So for me, it's about knowing that person is a sovereign divine being of light, whether they remember who they are or not, and that I asked them to do what they're doing. It doesn't sound logical, but we know we live all these lives and it's done for a purpose. Now, but this year, I decided, I was told many years ago by my higher self to stop reaching backwards towards people that don't see you. Because if they're not of your frequency, they're not going to see you. So I'm talking about family and friends that I've known for many, many years, some all my life. I was reaching back and I kept wanting them to see me, but they weren't seeing me. So many years ago, higher self said, stop reaching back. Those that go forward, because there are people that see you. Stop reaching back for those that don't see you. And so this year, 2023, I started this year obeying higher self. I have a list of people. I send them love and light. I know they are sovereign, divine beings of light. They don't remember who they are. I send them nothing but love and light. I surround them with love and light, but I have a list of people. I'm like, okay, these people I have to let go. Like Venus was saying, you let them go, but you let them go with love and light, not with malice. You know, you send them love and light, let them go their way, but know that they are a sovereign divine being of light, and you ask them to do what they're doing, but you don't have to be a doormat for anybody. So you have to just send them love and light and keep it moving.
Thank you. Those are really important messages. Really, they really are. See them in wholeness, but it doesn't mean we need to be their doormat. And I love that. You know, I've experienced most of the experience in our life when we let go of the lower vibrational people and things. It's all of a sudden this whole world opens up. So thank you for reminding us of that, Norma.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Love the dialogue that's taking place. And on this particular topic, life is a school, but it's also a stage. I don't know how many people here may have gotten involved with the arts and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But from my involvement with the arts, I have learned that the people you want to play the role of the villain has got to be pretty good, experienced, actors. So when I run into people who are choosing not to be all that they are, I have to recognize the fact that they wrote that into their plan. They're on a stage and they are acting out exactly, and I'll give a very, very quick example of that. During a time when I really wanted to travel consciously, because I got to this place where, well, if I did it in a medical situation, and then they took me out of my body and took me there so they could tell me if I don't stop trying to commit suicide, I'll have terrible results, then there has to be a way, I told myself, for me to find my way to cross dimensions. And I got very, very, very frustrated at the fact that I couldn't. And eventually Spirit said to me, you are overlooking the one person that is right in the office where you work. You are overlooking the right person because you've got your own opinions. And to tell you the truth, this was somebody that I would go, God have mercy. He does not seem to value anything else but money. Because he would walk around going, green stuff is what moves the world. And eventually that was the individual that Spirit guided me to ask to make that request. And he was able, by the time he counted from 1 to 5, I was gone. So you see, that helps you to understand that people are playing the roles that they have written into their script. And they're playing it because either we ask them to do it or it's very, very necessary for them to learn and experience what it is to be negative. But it doesn't circumvent the fact that deep down within their soul, they're still light beings. So I've learned to go, well, I'm not sure what role you took on here, but I'm not going to get myself messed up with it.
Thank you. That I put in the chat, Don had brought up Hinduism and they call it the Leela, the Hindus, and it's the divine play. And it's these things that we do together and playing these roles together. So I put the link in the chat because, it's been around forever and it's quite interesting when you start seeing the roles that we do play and the people that are playing the roles that we asked them to play. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Remember, Shaun, listen to this carefully. First, the people who love you the most are the ones who are willing to take that role in a lifetime so that you can get it.
Right. The narcissist, the narcissists in our life that are abusing us the most are here, and not loving us the most are here to teach us to love ourselves, in my experience. So thanks for reminding us of that. Don.
Yeah, I think everybody covered it pretty much. I just know from some of my own actual experience that the people we're closest to in this lifetime, we've been with them before. You can tell when you've been with somebody 3 or 4 lifetimes. Sometimes we get pretty close and sometimes not so close. You think about when you went to high school, it was very intense for the 4 or 5 years you went to high school with people. And that was your life at that time. But a third of my class has passed on already. I'm not in touch with hardly anybody from that time. So you think about who's in your life the longest. You've been active with them before. There's just some ease, and there's around some family members or close friends, you kind of know each other so well. You know the patterns. You just you call it telepathy and all that stuff. But it's you can tell when you've been with people, and if you have talent like art or piano, come on now, some guy that comes back playing piano at 5 or 6 years old, he's done that before, probably done it before that. Serena Williams, this wasn't the first time she played tennis. Michael Jordan, this wasn't the first time he played basketball. So sometimes we accumulate this talent, and then we come back and get the appropriate bodies to go ahead and act out our talent. So it's the same with people. You know, my grandmother, she was blind in one eye, partially blind in another. And my mother and I loved her very much. My mother and I were born in the same hospital in Western Maryland. My grandmother passed away in 77. That's a beautiful story. I could tell you about that. But I had a nephew born in, I think, 83, who was my grandmother. In fact, they had to put eye drops in his eyes because one eye kept moving around so much. They had to keep putting these eye drops. And every time I would pick that baby up and you get a smell, I could, you know, you could tell other than the aura, but you can smell, and you just don't see things. You can smell too, and you can hear sound. People don't talk a lot about the vibration, the ringing, this ringing, radiant sound, vibrating in everything. I'd love to talk about that with everybody, but that's, you know, that's something to know about if you don't already. The audible life stream, for example. But you know, my mother took care of my grandmother the most, and then here she has to take care of Anthony, who's now 40, and as a baby, to help my sister out. So the love comes right back to her. Her mother comes back as her grandson, and so we keep overlapping like that, time after time after time after time. And I think it's Carolyn. I hope I have the right name. Who lost her son
Yeah.
and daughter too.
Uh-huh.
Well, I call those life extensions. Sometimes we're blessed with God knows our pain, and He knows that we're not quite ready to let them go. My family went through this with my dad, and I felt sorry for everybody. I was ready because my dad and I had been communicating about all this stuff, but they weren't ready. So my dad stayed around for another 2 years, you know, until everybody was ready to say, okay, see you next time or whatever. So that happens sometimes. We get life extensions with some of the people that we love the most. If we just love them so much, and God's aware of that compassion and love, so He's okay. Well, I'll help this one out, give them a life extension, another 2 years, 3 years, or whatever like that. So that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And what's nice is to see that the connections that we have here, that we all agreed in a previous lifetime that we're going to meet at this time and do what we're doing. So thank you. And I do want to remind Dawn and all of you, as you come up with ideas, go into Hawaiian IANDS. There's the link to the video. Add them there, you know, as things that you want to add. And let's keep the conversation going. Of course, we have our, you know, sharing group, but this is all great stuff to do, you know, another, you know, without waiting another year, another conversation to get at a deeper level. So thank you for that, Don. Eugene.
Yeah, Shaun, can you just reiterate the question? Narcissistic people or what?
Yeah, so basically what she's saying is, as NDEers, especially new NDEers, and I'm going to paraphrase for her, because we're more gullible and we're more trusting, and we see people's souls. We don't see their egos or their ulterior motives, or especially, like I said, new experiencers. And you know, so basically what she's wanting to know is how do you deal with that, and how literally, how do you deal with that when you see the beauty in some person, and then they have, which many of us still do, even if we've had NDs, unconscious beliefs that we don't realize are running us. So how do you deal with a person like that, where you see them as perfect and then they're doing some underhanded stuff? How do you, because you have a higher understanding, how would you deal with that person? That's what she would like to know.
Yeah, it takes if the person who's had a near death and finds himself as a higher person, but then finds himself in a world full of the same corrupt, lower level, like selfish people, then they first have to protect themselves. And then experience and time will show them that you can only trust so much. Everyone has some kind of agenda. And you actually want to get to the point where you are beyond people, not beyond them, but you're thinking of ideas, not so much people. And you're working with people, but you're dealing with ideas and higher aspirations. There's always going to be difficult people. And it's not good to try and please any one person. Life is too short for that. And then there are some people you just can't please. I wouldn't, as long as they're not really hurting you, I wouldn't deal with the arrogant or time-wasting person. Just kind of identify them if you can. It's different with the near-death person because they can be over nice. Both of my parents said that I was too nice. They lived to their 90s, and they weren't the kind to give any kind of compliments like that. They were the strict old-fashioned kind. But the near-death person can be too nice, and so they have to kind of protect themselves against that, because normal people who aren't touched by that cosmic experience or any experience, spiritual, are mean, rough, rude, and cold compared to the near-deather. And the near-deather is surprised at how they are, not remembering before the near-death how they were. And the world's getting worse. And so it's better to surround yourself with people who are like you, or at least have the same experiences, have the same thinking. But a lot of people are super wild today. It's like the full Babylon rising. And the ones who are with God have to kind of surround themselves with other people who are with God, and really later for the rest, like the coronal worldly people. There's some people doing some deep stuff, kidnapping kids, stealing, killing people for their organs, all kinds of things. Politicians, farmers, everyone, cops. So it's a messy world out there. The less people you get involved with nowadays, the better. Time goes fast, and there's a lot of work to do. And there's a lot of good people out there too. And the right kind of thinking will attract them to you. But as soon as you identify them as some kind of parasitic narcissist, just as softly as you can, remove them from your life, or have them removed. It depends where you live. We're from Philly, so we have them removed. But don't let anyone mess up your head or your thinking or what your vision is for life. There's a lot of animals out there. You have to really just surround yourself with a group of the best and the brightest.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what, Susan, can you bring everybody in on the spotlight so everybody could say goodbye? And I just want to reiterate too, it's Andrea, a new experiencer, and I know exactly how she feels because I have been there, and it's proven. PMH is, I think, oh no, PMH is still here, but I think it was one of her, I'm not sure she's awake, but it was one of PMH's study that pointed out how much more gullible, so new NDEers are more likely to be swindled in financial transactions and all kinds of, and it's because we're so blessed by the light, and we do see the perfect thing. So I just want to point out, to remind Andrea that it's natural, it's common, and for me, I err on the side of not being jaded. And so if I get taken, I get taken, because it's just, material things don't mean anything to me. So I just want to, everybody's up here, right? Where's Don? Oh, Don's here. He's just not on the camera. Is everybody here? And Loretta and Susan, I just want to thank everybody. But I want
Loretta
to,
and Susan.
Yeah, that's what I was, I wanted to thank Loretta and Susan for helping so much make this all work. And I want to thank all of our wonderful speakers who have it's just been amazing. And I'm so honored to be here with you all. And I look forward to to doing more of it. And I just want to remind everybody, come to the sharing group on the 21st. And you can certainly ask more questions, but also those of you who didn't get to share your experiences, please come and you can share your experiences. And to PMH, who is passed out, but I am so grateful that she has come to our meeting. And to everybody else, I want to wish you a happy weekend. And again, thank you. I'm just so
Thank you,
honored.
Shaun. Thank you for organizing this.
My
Also,
pleasure.
happy new moon. With tomorrow is the new moon, great time for new beginnings, new moon.
Oh, by the way, really quick, everybody, you can download the chat. Literally, you can download the chat from tonight. There's 3 dots. Is that where it is?
Save chat, yeah.
Yeah. And so you can download the chat from tonight, if you didn't get everything. But also, if for some reason you can't download the chat, send me an email or find me on Facebook and I'll send you a copy of the chat. And that way you can have everybody's information and whatever was put in the chat. But again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Just am
It's great to meet
honored.
you all.
Good
And
meeting.
have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you.
Loretta, come on.
Yeah,
screen.
Loretta and
This
Susan,
is a
come on, let's
show
see
you.
you.
Show yourself. And
I'm
Susan.
on screen. I'm on screen. I just wanted to say thank you for this wonderful, amazing idea that this was your passion and your dream. It's much needed. And thank you, everyone, for speaking on the panel. I feel like this is a transformative event, one that will be continued. And we get to share our downloads with the next generation, which is what is so very important. I am so proud of all of us for this. This is significant. And I just want to say that, and thank you, Shaun, for just this being your heart.
Thank you.
Shaun, can we see a replay of this?
Yes. So, right now you can go to the Hawaiian IANDS Facebook group, and when we're done, it'll rewind. But then we're going to have a replay on Hawaiian IANDS on the YouTube. As soon as I get it up, then you guys can share it everywhere. And you can also put it on your own YouTubes. I just want to put it on Hawaiian IANDS first. And then, yeah, share it everywhere, please. Because I really think that this message so important that hopefully we can share, with as many people as possible. And then, of course, do it again and get to a deeper level. So
Good.
thank you all. Just wonderful. I'm so honored and relaxed we did it. So
Did it.
yay. Yes, pat
Thanks,
yourself
everybody.
all on the back.
Thanks
Okay.
to everyone who came too.
Yes.
Thanks to all the people who attended.
Yes.
Yes.
It went well.
Sorry, did somebody have something to say?
It went well,
Blessings to you all.
Huh?
Shaun.
Say what?
went
Blessings
well.
to you all.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, have a great night. We'll see you all soon. Aloha.
Bye.
Aloha.
Bye.
Share the message.